Beth. All right, I'm just going to jump into my introductions as people pile in to watch here. Welcome to Politics NY with Skye, here with my co-host, Steve with a tie.
Hi.
This interview is one in a series of Schneps Media Politics NY candidate discussions sponsored by AARP New York. New Yorkers 50 plus are the city's most reliable voters, accounting for 3 out of 4 ballots cast in the last open mayoral primary. AARP urges all of the New York City candidates to remember that 50 plus voters count and to focus on the issues most important to this critical voting bloc. We'd like to thank our partners at Brooklyn Public Library who are working with us to promote voter education and engagement for the 2021 local elections. As you guys may know, Schneps Media is the only media outlet providing a platform for every single New York City candidate to have their faces seen and voices heard and personalities on display. This fast and fun forum is being recorded, so you can watch it on politicsny.com and see all of our debates, scheduled debates, recorded debates, all there on politicsny.com/debates. So we have some of the candidates here. Just so you know, we've invited all of the Brooklyn Borough President candidates. I see another is joining. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
So welcome. We'd like to kick this off in an unconventional way. So instead of giving us your traditional 1-minute opening, we'd like to go around and have each of you introduce yourself by telling us what makes you the best candidate for Brooklyn Borough President, and perhaps you can sum it up into a catchphrase. So everyone has 1 minute to do that. What makes you the best candidate for Brooklyn Borough President? Tell the voters and then give us your little catchphrase. So we'll go in alphabetical order with last name. So that means you, Robert Cornegy, you are up first, the tallest politician in the world.
Yeah. Hey, how are you? Good to see you, Skye. I believe that the Brooklyn Borough President's Office has such an undefined role that you get to bring your level of acumen to the role. I am currently the chair of Housing and Buildings, and in the last legislative session, I was the chair of Small Business, which allows me to have this unique perspective on what recovery and resiliency looks like. What recovery and resiliency looks like to me is job creation, undergirding our small business by giving them access to capital as well as technical assistance to truly be able to recover. There'll be more millionaires made in this recovery and resiliency period than any time in the city's history. Whether or not Brooklyn residents have the opportunity depends solely on the Brooklyn Borough President's Office. And that is why I'm uniquely qualified, because of my level of acumen in responsible development, getting us affordability, and in job creation and pathways for small businesses, not only to exist, but to grow and flourish and build capacity. That makes me the most uniquely qualified to lead the borough of Brooklyn out of this into this recovery and resiliency that's so talked about. And I guess my catchphrase would be, when you started this guy, I'm head and shoulders above the rest, figuratively and literally.
Thank you. And I see Khari Edwards has joined. Hi, Khari. We are going around in alphabetical order, last name first, just giving us not your traditional 1-minute opening, but why voters should choose you over the rest of these people on the screen, along with a little catchphrase about yourself.
Well, as it pertains to the male candidates, I'm better looking. So I think that starts off really well.
Wow.
We're having some fun with it today.
No problem. No problem.
But from the standpoint, you know, I'm the only candidate with borough-wide experience. I worked with 2 governors around being the Brooklyn regional rep. I've handled health policy for the New York State Senate, specifically around ensuring that we do not close hospitals and that everybody has real health access. And then I was the vice president of Brookdale Hospital for 8 years, where we went through some of the hardest health outcomes, but that was where I decided to run because, you know, I was working with good union folks who had great jobs and benefits, but were living in shelters. And, you know, then COVID happened, and it changed the dynamic of realizing that as much as we're different, as much as we're the same. So what I think that makes me the right candidate is because I'm a grassroots person, right? I grew up in Brooklyn, was born in Brooklyn, hang out in Brooklyn. So I'm really Brooklyn all day, every day. And so my catchphrase really is just based off of I'm Brooklyn vested. And so that's the things that we talk about. I'm Brooklyn vested. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And next up is Robert Elstein.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Skye. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Well, I'm a poet, and catchphrases are kind of my thing. So I think the first one might not be the most lyrical, but fun and relevant schools. I think that we need to reform our schools to make them relevant and fun. Obviously, the curriculum does not meet the needs of all of the students. The funding is misappropriated. I've been a teacher at Edward R. Murrow High School for the last 16 years, a theater and English teacher. And I don't agree with Khari's assessment that he's the only candidate with borough-wide experience. I've been working with students from every community in Brooklyn for the last 16 years. And I've worked with them for not only 4 years, but I've watched them grow up and have careers as surgeons and lawyers and journalists and researchers and all different fields. So, while most of the candidates have a 5-minute conversation on the campaign trail, I get to see how a Brooklynite learns. I get to understand what their actual needs are. It's not just like, a quick little, let's talk for a few minutes and then move on. So what makes me the right person for this job is that I have connections to every community in Brooklyn and every generation in Brooklyn. And to go a little bit further with the catchphrases, I think we need to open up Borough Hall for a variety of different types of mentoring programs. The students that I work with get to experience the full diversity of Brooklyn, but their grandparents sometimes don't. So I think that we can serve the senior citizens through Borough Hall and let them interact with members of different communities and experience the richness of our diversity in the way that their kids and grandchildren might be able to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I know I'm doing this whole thing where I spotlight the candidates as they talk, as someone requested. Okay, next up is Pearlene Fields.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me, everyone. Basically, I think I'm uniquely qualified for this position because I am not a politician. I am a member of the community, just like everyone else from the marginalized communities who are being ignored and who can see it from their point of view instead of from the point of view of someone up at the top who just focus on, going to the next position and things of that nature. I think that as a person who was formerly homeless, I got to see what it's like when you're ignored and your needs aren't met. So that's why I basically got into this race to fight for affordable housing and jobs and things of that nature. And I think that we need to be more inclusive in Brooklyn. And as a person who worked at the United Nations, I'm accustomed to working with a multicultural environment. And Brooklyn is that multicultural environment. We have people from all walks of life, all cultures, and we need to unify that and come together and work together so that we can rebuild Brooklyn out of the pandemic to be much better and more inclusive so that we make sure that we're not left behind this time. And as far as my experience go, I am a board president of the Sierra House, a company that helps at-risk youth, homeless mothers and their children. And I am on Community Board 17, where I'm on the housing chair, the housing committee, where I'm the chair, and I'm on the land use committee. And I just think that we need to be more open about allowing outsiders in order to help the community grow and build. And my catchphrase would be, no PAC money, no BS, all Brooklyn, all heart. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And for our live audience, we are going around and meeting the candidates. They are telling us why they are the best, who's the best candidate, and a catchphrase. And next up is Trisha Ocona.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, we hear the sirens behind me. Excuse that. My name is Trisha O'connor, and I'm running for Brooklyn Borough President. When, all my fellow candidates, they have great qualifications, but what we want Brooklyn to understand is what is the role of the Brooklyn Borough President? Like, what does the Brooklyn Borough President really do? This is a conversation I was having with my children the other day. And Brooklyn Borough President is responsible for appointing 50% of the community board members within our community. Some people don't even know that community board exists. And I know I hear a lot of talk about reforming community boards and trying to get more younger people on the community boards. Well, at the time that I was appointed, I was one of the youngest people on the community board. I spent a decade on the community board. I'm the immediate past housing chairperson that I had to work very closely with the land use committee. I was on the youth committee, and I helped build and create the Block Association committee with Community Board 7 and Mr. Gabriel. So when it comes to community board, and if you're responsible for appointing the community board and reforming the community board and supporting the community board, you want someone who understands community board on all the levels. The other thing that the borough president is responsible of doing is doing some recommendations and reviews on the land use, the EULA. And you know, like I said, the candidates here are great, but you want someone who understands housing. I've been studying housing for 20 years. I
don't want to cut you off, Trisha, but get your catchphrase. And
then my catchphrase, we are all in this together. I've created councils where everyone in Brooklyn can be a part of it, can have their voice heard. We are all in this together. I can't do it alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Antonio Reynoso.
Thank you, Skye. Yeah, my name is Antonio Reynoso. Look, I think what we have to be talking about is experience, and it does have value. I've been a council member and fought for police reform and the Right to Know Act. I've taken on the corrupt private sanitation industry and making sure that we can reform it in a meaningful way. I stood up against greedy developers, and that all has value. It's a resume that is meaningful. And I think that people will see that and take it for what it's worth. But I want to do more. I want to make sure that I could pay it forward. Everything that Brooklyn has given me, I want to give back to it. So I want to make sure that I can pay attention to the schools and build equity into them. I care deeply about making sure the places that need more resources actually get more resources, that we go to the places, these zip codes that have been abandoned for too long, and be unapologetic and deliberate about the time and resources that we spend there. I also want to focus on affordable housing, and again, not rely solely on 2 or 3 communities that are mostly Black, brown, and poor to do all the development in our city. We should spread the love of affordable housing throughout all of Brooklyn, and I'm excited that I'm going to take that on. And then it's about jobs, outdoor dining. If you love it, you're welcome. I was the author of the legislation and is now transformed streets in our city. And we saved 100,000 jobs because of it, and countless restaurants. That's the type of creative mind and creative attitude that we need for a borough president. So I want to make sure that I build a Brooklyn for all of us. But my slogan is going to be spread love, because it's the Brooklyn way.
Thank you, Antonio Reynoso. And last but not least, Joanne Simon. You're on mute, Joanne.
Oh, I know. I just realized. Sorry.
There you go.
I was trying to not make noise. I'm Joanne Simon, and I'm an assembly member representing the 52nd Assembly District here in Brooklyn. And so, but let me tell you how I got there. I got there because someone got shot in the head across the street from my house in the bodega. And that got me involved with my block, which got me involved with my neighborhood. And my experience and why I am best qualified to be the borough president is because I have been a community leader and a community organizer, rolling up my sleeves and working with people throughout Brooklyn, throughout Western Brooklyn, on many, many issues, and also cleaning up the Brooklyn Democratic Party and taking on the corrupt party boss, Vito Lopez in particular, who was probably the most corrupt. But also standing up to greedy developers and standing up for community, because when community has an idea that works, their voices should be heard. My candidacy is about the voices of the people of Brooklyn being heard in the decisions that affect their lives. My catchphrase is that I am running to be a catalyst for change as the first woman borough president in Brooklyn. A little choppy there, but you get it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, everyone. So we'll go right into our first question. And remember, this is a fast and fun debate, so we don't mean to cut anyone off. So keep your answers short and sweet so we can get to a lot of our questions. The first question is, what would you do over the next 4 years to ensure the city is a more livable place for people as they age? Again, knowing that this debate is sponsored by AARP. So let's go over to Robert Cornegy first. Oops. There you go.
So I have the pleasure of having an age-friendly district and a north, which is a naturally occurring retirement community, which we fought for. One of the only horizontal norths that exist in the city. I have age-friendly ambassadors who are constantly working to make sure that there's an age-friendly community, but an age-friendly Brooklyn. So what that means is that we have days that merchants in the area give discounts to seniors so that they can have the ability to have entertainment and have it reasonable. We have transportation alternatives for our seniors. We also have events that are solely centered around our seniors. I started a program for senior swim at Kosciuszko Pool that allows our seniors to swim on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 11:30 by themselves, without young people, without splashing, without noise. So we have demonstrated what we know to be the case, is that we are aging faster than any particular community or any particular city around the world. And so we have to make it age friendly. So I have an age-friendly initiative that expounds upon what we were able to accomplish in Bedford-Stuyvesant, highlighting our seniors, giving them what they need to live in place through our naturally occurring retirement community. I intend, as your borough president, to have a solid focus on our seniors and have an age-friendly Brooklyn. That includes transportation, that includes entertainment, that includes public safety, with our seniors in mind. We've done a yeoman's job working with AARP and working with the Department for the Aging to create these programs in the district and pumping funds. I intend to continue that as your Brooklyn Borough President and expound on it. So make sure that seniors are highlighted in every single corner of the great borough of Brooklyn.
Thank you. Next, Khari Edwards.
Thank you. We have to talk about the most serious situation as it pertains to our seniors, which is affordable housing, and maintaining the fact that the roofs over their heads have to remain over their heads. Our seniors are one of our highest displaced groups throughout this unaffordable borough. And as borough president, you know, the op-ed I wrote concerning the Brooklyn recently, I didn't address the seniors, but because they already built into that conversation. We have to make sure that seniors can maintain their homes. And so I intend to start to put a housing oversight committee in the Borough Hall to ensure that seniors can stay in their homes and live comfortably. While I was at Brookdale Hospital, pivoting to healthcare, I started a program called Brookdale at Your Door, where before even telemedicine, we brought actual doctors to the homes of seniors to ensure that they didn't have to get on transportation, get to Brookdale Hospital, wait on long lines. We brought the doctors to them. So the top two priorities for our seniors really is to maintain their affordability in their homes and to make sure that their healthcare is intact. And so I want to continue that as borough president. Lastly, we have to talk about what happened during COVID and our food insecurities. Our seniors were the ones who couldn't get out, who couldn't put those big boxes in their carts. And so what I want to do is create a transportation hub that will allow us to bring food to seniors at their doorsteps. And I think that's the biggest, one of the three biggest things that I'd like to address as borough president.
Thank you. And next, Robert Elstein.
All right, thanks, Skye. I just want to start by kind of doing a little fact checking. Joanne Simon just claimed to have reformed the Kings County Democratic Party. So congratulations. I don't think it was a very long-lasting reform. It's probably the most corrupt county party in all of America. So that's really the source of most of our problems here in Brooklyn. So, you know, claiming that there's no issues with the Kings County Democratic Party at this time and date is, you know, absurd. It's probably the most absurd thing I've heard in any one of these forums. With all due respect to Assembly Member Simon's record, that just shows incredibly how out of touch most of the establishment candidates are, including, you know, Mr. Reynoso, a council member who, said that we need to look into the schools. We need to do a lot more than look into the schools. We have the bully pulpit as the borough and Borough Hall as the borough president, and we need to demand that there's equity in our schools. We need to demand that there's proper social services. We need to demand that the teachers are collaborating. We need to demand that
we're talking about seniors.
So I'm sorry. I mean, I know that the question is about seniors, but I'm talking about mentorship programs that we can, actually use the experience that I've had in the schools to allow the seniors to connect with one another. We also have the opportunity to build accessible playgrounds. I think the most important thing, though, is just to tell a senior citizen that you're important, that your story is valuable, that we want to listen to you, that you're a more than just important, an extremely valued member of the community. And I think that we can document the stories of our senior citizens. An issue for future seniors is that we haven't had a new Mitchell-Lama development in over 30 years. So I have a plan for developing a cooperative of a new generation of real estate developers to develop Mitchell-Lamas. So 30 years from now, there are families that are living in Mitchell-Lamas, and a homeowner, a Brooklynite could own a home for $100,000 a year. But for whatever reason, state assembly members have suppressed that information from us.
Thank you, Robert. Next is Pearlene Fields. The question is, what would you do over the next 4 years to ensure the city is a more livable place for people as they age?
Thank you. First, I think we should start by asking them what they need and what they want first. And that starts with building relationships with an organization like AARP, because they're going to know what their needs are. And then we move on from there. And we can start with making sure they have the housing and the day programs and making sure the nursing homes are taken care of. But first, we need to ask them, because we can assume by looking what we think they need, but we still need to get their input and give them a voice so that they can have a chance to be part of the process. And then we can make sure that they have the livable spaces that they need. And if they want to do something like work part-time or any retirement and things of that nature, we have jobs and stuff, for them, and not just Walmart greeters type of positions, but whatever they want to do, is let it be this their world. You get old, you should be able to do whatever you want, whether it be work or relax or whatever. So it's about making sure we know what they need, and so we can make sure we can build the housing, hopefully get the organization to take part of take advantage of the neighborhood pillars program, so they can build more senior housing and things of that nature, and just all around make sure we get the input from organizations like AARP.
Okay, thank you for that. Next is Trisha O'Connor. Same question.
Yes. So, one, we have to look at what is the state of the aging right now. I am the daughter of senior citizen, my parents, and so what the issues that Brooklyn seniors go through, I see it, because that's what my parents will go through as well. We want to look at the housing, right? So let's start with NYCHA. We can start with NYCHA. We have some of the city council members here who I don't know if they really have taken a look at what's happening in NYCHA. And there are seniors coming to me saying that they're afraid that management is being changed over. They don't know if it's being sold. They're getting Section 8. They don't know if they're going to be kicked out. And there are council people here in this forum who had a chance to address it. Like, we're about to go into a housing crisis. You want to look at homeowners. If predominantly Black and brown homeowners who were losing their homes due to TPT, city council members here, and with all due respect, Robert Cornegy, TPT was in your district. And I hope I get a chance to address this. I had to come out, I know, as a housing chair and say, wait a minute, that's not even a city issue. That's a state issue. You can't just take someone's house, and I'm not an attorney, but you can't just, I teach it. I've been teaching it for 11 years through CUNY. You can't just take someone's house. So that should have been the defense to start it on the state level, which we have Joanne Simon here as well, to say, listen, it cannot, Seniors are scared of losing their homes. There are seniors in the shelter system. They don't have food. They don't even have a mailbox. They feel that when they get to a certain age, they're forgotten. They're thrown away. My parents are seniors. The people on my block are seniors. I understand. So we need to make sure that, one, their housing is secure, whether they're living in NYCHA. How many seniors in my area did not know that they can get their rent frozen? How many homeowners didn't know that they can get 50% deduction on taxes? That's the outreach that my office is going to do. And the people who are current right now have not done it. We're going to see the worst housing crisis ever. We need someone who understands housing to make this recovery really strong.
Thank you, Trisha. And yes, a few candidates have been called out. So Antonio was one of them. Antonio, you're up next with this.
Yes. I want to try to keep it fun and light. These are serious issues, but I don't think we need to be at war with each other. And as long as Robert doesn't cut this out and use it for one of his campaign videos, I just want to say Robert arguably passed one of the most meaningful pieces of legislation to reform the third-party transfer party in the history of the city council. So big ups to you, Robert, for your record and your resume that actually speaks to these issues. But look, I also want to make sure that people like Khari Edwards and Robert Cornegy age gracefully and that we provide the services that they need when they enter the senior centers. But let's be perfectly honest that the seniors did everything they needed to do. They laid down the foundation to allow for people like us to be able to use it as a platform to grow. And it's our turn to pay it forward. They shouldn't have to worry about housing, about food, about any resources, and they should be able to age gracefully with all the resources available to them. Our city has not done enough with our senior centers, and senior services are extremely limited, and we have not-for-profits competing for resources. That is that shouldn't be the case. We have a food program that only existed because of COVID. But prior to COVID, we should have been sending more meals, more warm meals, and more visits to seniors so they don't need to leave their homes when they need to eat. And then we have to talk about housing. Housing is a huge issue, not only because the displacement that's happening of seniors and the limited income, because some of them only have SSI insurance to pay for their rent, but it's also grandchildren and children still living in their grandparents' home, specifically because there is no new housing stock. Since the 202 federal program has moved out, there's no new housing stock for them to move out of. So they're overburdened and doubled and tripled up in these homes. And we really need to solve for that. And the way we do it is by building everywhere, not just in a couple of neighborhoods. So for the seniors, just know that I'm going to make sure that you have better services. The food program is year round, and that the housing is finally built, not only in poor and Black and brown neighborhoods, but also so that your kids and their kids can finally move out and you can be at peace and age gracefully.
Thank you. And last but not least, Joanne Simon.
Wait. I thought you said that people could address if they had been addressed.
Yes.
At the end, I guess.
Robert, who was addressed first? Me.
And you next.
Sorry, Joanne.
All right, so let's, right?
Yeah, you were first, Joanne. You're
That's right. That's exactly right. So let me set the record straight. What I said was stood up to the corrupt party boss, Vito Lopez. That has nothing to do with who is in county now, or an opinion about what is happening since that time. But the reality is, if you know anything about Brooklyn politics, you knew about Vito Lopez, and you knew what a tyrant Vito Lopez was and what a destructive force he was in Brooklyn. And very few people stood up to Vito Lopez. So I just set that record straight. Secondarily, when it comes to our seniors, right? We need our seniors to be housing secure. We need them to be food secure. Many people have talked about some of the problems we have had. We have to recognize that when it comes to housing, the ultimate problem started because the federal government stopped funding housing. So Mitchell-Lama was federal money run by the state, but it was federal money. New York City Housing Partnership, which provided a lot of affordable home ownership to people, was also federal money run by the city, but it was federal money. NYCHA, of course, is primarily federal money. So it's been decades of disinvestment by the federal government in housing. And that matters. That matters whether it's 202, it matters whether it's Section 8, it matters whether it's NYCHA, whether whether it's New York City Partnership Housing or any other the sweat equity programs that existed previously. So that's something that the borough president can and should advocate strongly for, and I will be doing as borough president. As an assembly member, I have had a senior fair. I've worked very closely with seniors. I don't know if you realize that there in 2017, the last data we have, there were over 430,000 people over 60 in the borough of Brooklyn. That's almost 17% of the 2.6 million people in Brooklyn. So seniors are a very important category. I have been the most accessible legislator, and I work very closely with the seniors in every way, shape, and form. And I'm looking forward to listening to them and providing them support. And let me just also say, not only do we have seniors, we have a lot of women living alone. We also do not provide enough supportive housing and enough housing for people who are LGBTQ, and they need senior housing as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know this talk about Brooklyn politics, as you know, Steve, my editor-in-chief, was the founder of Kings County Politics. So he's Mr. Brooklyn. So I'm going to hand it over to him for the next question. And I know, yes, Robert Cornegy was going to address something that he was called out on. And then Steve, you take it from there.
Okay.
Sorry, Steve. So the reason I love Brooklyn is just these two sayings. One is, don't talk about it, be about it. And the other is, I can show you better than I can tell you. So we built 100 units of 100% affordable housing on the NYCHA grounds in our district in Sumner houses. Almost, that construction is underway for our seniors. We actually, like Antonio mentioned, used the oversight in a very newly minted part of the city council and oversight and investigations to call HPD on the carpet for third-party transfer. In my district, we broke the history by actually returning a deed to a homeowner that had been taken by the Department of Finance. First time in the history that a deed, and it took every bit and every ounce of political capital to get Miss Marlene Saunders her home back. So to blanketly say that the third-party transfer program was in my district, we righted that ship through policy and legislation, and literally by getting people their homes back. The third-party transfer program, however, has a separate component that was designed to make sure that tenants, where there was disinvestment from landlords, could stay and have an increased quality of life. Let's not forget those people. So there is a part of the third-party transfer program that is vital to tenancy and making sure that people's quality of life is not compromised by unscrupulous landlords. The other part, which sought to disenfranchise Black and brown homeowners from their properties, we are addressing with 7 pieces of legislation, not 1. The third-party transfer program will never be the same that it was, and we halted it during the process to make sure that we could have the right legislation and policy in place so no other Black or brown family would be disenfranchised from their wealth and the ability to transfer wealth to their families through the third-party transfer program ever again.
Thank you. Steve Witt, the king of Kings County politics.
Thank you for that. That's very kind of you, Skye. Keeping on with the AARP questions, as the city reimagines its streetscapes, how would you incorporate the needs of the city's aging residents and ensure pedestrian safety, particularly for residents 50 and older?
You want to go backwards order for this one, just for fun?
Sure.
Okay, Joanne Simon.
Okay. So thank you, Steve, for that question. Thank you, Skye. So one thing you have to do is make sure people can cross the street. So we don't have enough pedestrian refuges. We have some very, very wide streets that are very hard for people to cross. So pedestrian refuge in the middle of those streets where people can walk halfway across the street and stop and be safe is very important. The other thing is protected bike lanes. Protected bike lanes are extremely important to protect cyclists and to protect pedestrians. And I say that because I hear from seniors all the time who are frightened by the bicyclists who are on the bike lanes that are not protected. And because, one thing that we did when we created the Downtown Brooklyn Traffic Calming Study is that we showed that by design, you could actually change behavior. And one of the things that you can change the behavior about is if you have protected bike lanes, because that actually will protect everybody. And it gives a signal to the pedestrian that there's a bicyclist that could be coming. So this is very important. The other thing I want to say about the city of the future. You know, we need to provide more supported housing. We need to provide more assisted living facilities, and we need to recognize that paid family leave includes elder care. And those are also ways that we can help our seniors navigate the Brooklyn of the future.
Thank you. Antonio Reynoso.
Yes, and I agree with a lot of what the assembly member said. I think the important thing here is that we need to make sure that the spaces in which the seniors are moving through traffic are extremely safe. And right now in our city, we've actually seen crashes and deaths go up under Vision Zero program. And that's very concerning because the people that tend to get hit more are younger or older residents of the city of New York. Another issue is just street furniture. It seems like every time there's a new idea in the city of New York, they want to put it on the sidewalk. That means the tree pit is there, the bench is there, there's an ATM machine there, and it's just unlimited street furniture that makes it very hard to traverse the city streets. If you're in a wheelchair, if you're a new dad like I am and are walking around with your carriage, it's just extremely difficult and it's nonsensical. We need to start moving away from this idea that the sidewalks are spaces that can continually be filled with furniture and that it won't, and that it's free space for anyone to use. We also have to think about transportation outside of just sidewalks. The bus system, we should have a more express and exclusive busway that moves through our city very quickly, so that we can encourage more ridership on the buses. As we know, seniors prefer to take on buses than the more onerous subway system. So I would look to take off the street furniture and do better with bus services for our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. Trisha O'Connor, your thoughts on pedestrian safety and streetscapes?
Well, once again, speaking about my parents and the seniors in the area, they're scared to go outside. They're scared to walk the streets. They're scared to cross the streets because of the bike lanes, the buses, the cars, and just the safety. So definitely one is maybe putting that back, the walk numbers, and giving a little bit more time for the seniors to cross. Also, making sure that there is space for the seniors to cross. So when they come down to the pedestrian walk and they're trying to cross, sometimes the street is cracked. Sometimes the sidewalk is cracked. Sometimes they have a cane. They can't walk through the side with the cane. So we really have to look at our streets, and one of my councils, we will be sitting down with the MTA and the Department of Transportations and taking a look at the sidewalks in the streets and seeing how we can better assist them so they can get up, because they are going out to the supermarkets, they are going to the stores, and they want to feel safe when they're crossing the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Pearlene Fields.
Thank you. One of the things I've seen in, I think it was California, you know, the streets where when you're walking across the street, the light stops in every single direction so that you can cross. I think that we need to have more of those on all of the streets that are wide in Brooklyn, because this way, if the cars stop in every direction, the seniors will feel comfortable walking across the street. Everyone will feel comfortable walking across the street, because it's dangerous when the cars are going back and forth. You don't know, you gotta look around and you look out for the bicycles and the electric bicycles and things of that nature. So we need to do more of those and look into being able to have more of those put up. And we also need to make sure that more people are tending to their sidewalks in front of their homes and things of that nature, because like Mr. O'Connor said, these sidewalks are cracked. It's hard to walk. You can trip and fall. And the worst thing in the world is to be a senior and fall and break a bone. And you know, that's not going to heal properly like it would if you were younger. So that's unsafe in itself. So we need to do more of looking into getting all of these things sorted, so this way they can be much more safer for them. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robert Elstein.
All right. I want to say Antonio is absolutely right about this furniture on the sidewalk. You know, it's kind of absurd. They want to bring in, you know, more city bikes. They were considering bringing these electric scooters. You know, we need more bike racks for our own individual bikes. We don't need a corporate sponsored bike sharing program that doesn't even have the safety of the people, you know, who are riding it in mind. they really don't do much to encourage even helmet use. But when it comes to crosswalks, there's actually an opportunity for the crosswalk to be a canvas for public art. The crosswalks, they're just basically painted white lines. It kind of looks like a ladder. That entire space could be a brightly colored painting that's designed by students, by artists who have been out of work because of the pandemic. And it would really create like a very visible, but also it would just sort of change the culture at every intersection, and it would obviously have to be done in a way that wasn't distracting, like it wasn't so beautiful that would encourage, unsafe driving. I also think that really more important is I think most of the candidates are missing the mark about everything. It's like, let's try to fix things within the system we have. No, let's change the system. The Department of Transportation does not have our best interests in mind. We need to make sure that the next commissioner of the Department of Transportation is completely committed to safety of crossing the streets. Another thing that we really need to advocate for is at the state level. Every subway station needs to be elevator accessible. This is going to be a project that may take decades, but that's something that has to begin. As the population continues to age, we need to also study the data of what intersections are the most dangerous and really address those most carefully. And more speeding cameras, add points to the licenses of the drivers who are speeding.
Thank you. Sorry to cut you off. Next, Khari Edwards about pedestrian safety in streets.
Pedestrian safety needs to be expanded in terms of, what Trisha said is absolutely correct. 30-something seconds to get across the street is not enough time for a senior. In addition to that, all of our streetlights do not have hearing impaired beeping sounds that are necessary if you're visually impaired. So I think that the investment that I'll make through capital dollars is to ensure that we have those two things on every street corner, specifically Black and Brown communities with an aging population like Bedford-Stuyvesant and Brownsville. Secondly, the indentation of our sidewalks, right? How many seniors did I have to see if they have walkers had to work hard to get up onto the sidewalk? We need to take a study of that and make sure that we have more indentative sidewalks. And lastly, really expanding the size of our crosswalks. Because again, if you have 4 or 5 people on the side and someone has a wheelchair, then basically you're literally in the flow of traffic. So there's a lot of things that I would really like to see. I do disagree with Mr. Elstein in that respect. I think DOT can be reformed if it's the right leadership in tow. And I think that a lot of the revenue and the platform of the Borough President's Office can really push that agenda a little bit more.
Thank you. And Robert Cornegy, the last person in this question: as the city reimagines its streetscapes, how would you incorporate the needs of the city's aging residents and ensure pedestrian safety?
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to the former commissioner of DOT, Polly Trottenberg, who you couldn't find a better, more committed public servant than her. And I've had the chance to work with her on streetscapes and on everything that was important to and germane to communities, not only across Brooklyn, but across the entire borough. Listen, I didn't realize what an ageist agenda the progressive ideals were until I became 50 years old. So as a bike rider, I wanted more protected bike lanes. I wanted my family to transverse safe. I wanted to actually decrease or use bike lanes actually as a means for crime prevention, which we see in many areas that does. But that agenda didn't include our seniors. So we had time and time again studies that didn't include our seniors, that include protected bike lanes, that include more transportation alternatives. And until we have the voice in Borough Hall that drives an agenda that includes every senior in every part of this borough, we're going to continue to have this happen again. So under my leadership, we will continue to look at streetscapes, and we'll have an urban planning idea that keeps our seniors at the top as a priority, those who've laid the pathway for us. So we can have a progressive agenda, but it can be inclusive of our seniors. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And my age-friendly Brooklyn includes transportation, as I mentioned before, but transportation alternatives that include seniors and time to get across the street, and transportation alternatives that are for the most valuable of us, which are our seniors and our youth.
Thank you. Steve Witt.
Yes, and let's try to keep it short because we only have the 7:30. I hope it's not a short answer. But I want to bring up the Barclay Center, the Atlantic Yards project. It was one of the biggest projects in the city in the past 15 years. It provided economic development boost to the borough, as well as a public gathering spot for the Black Lives Matter movement. If another billionaire developer came into Brooklyn with a similar project, such as when Amazon attempted to come to Queens for a headquarters, how would you, as borough president, approach the proposed development? Hello?
We don't- in what order we're here?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start that one because everybody knows my platform for recovery and resiliency in Brooklyn's centers around job creation and job development. So I will be honest with you. I was one of those who was in favor of continuing the dialogue around the Industry Cities project. I was proud of that because I don't believe that you should get up from the table when a negotiation is in process. So I'm not saying that project was flawless. I'm saying that the ability to discourage that level of development for job creation is a missed opportunity because now we don't have that or any level of that at that site. So I would, as the borough president, commit myself to sitting down and working diligently to come to a place where everyone's needs are satisfied, both the developer and the community that it serves, but most importantly, the hardworking men and women who find themselves in a recession headed towards a depression. I'm not an economist, but I do know that the way out of a recession is through job creation. So I would have that as a priority. That's a priority for my campaign, is to make sure that we can deliver jobs and put hardworking men and women on a pathway to success through access to jobs. And so I'm going to be the jobs borough president. There's no question about that. Everybody knows that. And I'm not going to get up from the table until I've negotiated a deal that's a benefit for the immediate community that it serves, but also for those hardworking men and women who have a reasonable expectation that its leadership will deliver for them opportunity.
So, Robert, I just want to reply to that. The Atlantic Yards project is one of the most unsuccessful development projects we've ever had in Brooklyn. There's still absolutely no housing in that project. We have no affordable housing, but we have everything else. All the other things that make rich people more money is absolutely working, like the Barclays
and no
Center
union
and the
jobs,
NEPs.
Antonio. I'm with you. And no union protected jobs.
Let me
finish. Can I finish, Robert? Let me finish, Robert. Let me just finish.
I don't know if that's what we were doing. Is that what we were doing? Is that what?
No.
I'm just saying.
You're right, Robert. I'll pull back on that a little bit, but I just want you to know that you got to be very careful because the issue that we have is that the ULERP process that currently exists in the city council doesn't allow us to give true protections to communities. It's these CBAs that have no legal teeth to them. So communities are signing these CBAs.
So if a large developer came and you were borough president, Antonio, would you talk to the developer? Would you allow a dialogue, or would you just go,
the developer would,
right, big project?
Steve, the developer would have to go to the community first before he ever talks to me. None of these developers are going to have access to my office if they're not talking and building a community-based process to have this happen. And thereafter, if the community and the community boards of which we are in charge of decide that the plan is good enough to get to me, then it'll get to me. But to have a conversation before the community does it is something that I won't do. And two, we have no protections right now, Steve. So we lose every time. You've never seen any of these projects actually produce the jobs that these people make up every single time. We lose every time there's these major developments. And it's about time we change the ULERP process to allow for real input. And I'm going to use the bully pulpit to try to make that happen because we have limited responsibilities, charter mandated responsibilities as borough presidents. So what I want to do is make sure that I use the bully pulpit to start bringing more attention to this issue.
So
Can I go next? Oh, come on, y'all. I can't
I'm not finished. I wasn't finished.
But you spoke for 5 minutes.
And I was addressed while I was finished. I get to have a rebuttal. So
the
way you frame the question,
everybody's got to say, Rob.
All right. You know what? Go ahead, man.
Give
Go ahead.
Khari.
So come on, man. Like you can't then
Rob,
address me
30
and
seconds.
then the way you framed the question about the economic development opportunities that came out of that is what I addressed. I certainly understand that the affordable housing wasn't delivered. I answered your question about economic development and whether or not, as a borough president, I would sit with developers to iron out. I am in charge of being able to put forward a new agenda item for the ULURP process as the chair of housing and buildings. So I will leave the ULURP process better than I found it ever as the chair of housing and buildings. I'm committed to doing that. I'm committed to leaving that legacy. I answered your question about economic development and whether or not I would sit with a developer, and the answer still remains the same. I absolutely would. I will not get up from a table negotiating on behalf of the hardworking men and women of this borough, jobs and opportunity every single time.
Let's give Khari.
I done.
Khari, please.
Skye, I'm sorry that this stopped being fun a while ago, but the reality of it is that, you know, some development is needed in our communities. The problem is that we do things in silos and behind closed doors. As the borough president, if a billionaire comes to speak to me, I'm going to entertain the conversation. I'm going to have them then present that to the community board. And once they present that to the community board, how the community board feels about it, we'll do the next step. We'll come in with an ironclad community benefits agreement that will not only promise jobs, but good union jobs and housing. And then on top of that, every step of that development, we're going to watch. And what we haven't done in the past is that, yes, Antonio's 1000% right. We only have the bully pulpit, but what I'm really going to do, and this needs to be an agenda of all of my candidates on this thing as well, is that we have to change that charter to get community boards to actually have a vote going forward. No more of it shouldn't even get to ULURP. While I was handling the stuff with the governor's housing program, the developers had to present to the community, and if the community didn't like what they saw, there was no development going up. And we have to get back to that. They took that away from us in 1975. And every one of these candidates should not be talking about anything without having that community board having a vote before it even gets to this disgusting ULURP process that we have. So that's it on my end.
Thank you.
See, I like to keep it fun, and then when Steve gets involved,
I know, but it's an important issue, because as we move forward, the borough and the borough president often gets involved with these big, developments. If something comes, they have to kind of weigh in.
As well, the borough president should, as well he should. That's our responsibility, 100%.
So Joanne, please, Assemblywoman Simon. Hello? She there?
Sorry, I had left off my, microphone. Okay, so as the only person that actually was engaged with Atlantic Yards, Steve, I know you and I sometimes disagree about Atlantic Yards. So here's the question: would I entertain a conversation? Of course you entertain a conversation, but the reality is development should be responsible, smart, and community driven. Atlantic Yards was the exact opposite of that. Atlantic Yards was every bad idea ever presented from an urban design point of view, as well as a funding point of view. They never had any money for this project. They never planned to build the project out. There are 791 or 81 units of housing that have been built. And the only reason they were built is because the community was bringing a race-based suit because of the massive displacement from community boards 2, 3, 6, and 8 of African Americans and Latinos, mostly African Americans. So this is in fact not a good project. What you have now, 10 years later, you had not one unit of housing. Now you have 791 units of housing, most of which is 100% to 165% of AMI. That's not really affordable for the people who were kicked out of that area. That's not affordable for the people who lost their buildings due to eminent domain in an area where eminent domain was not needed and it was not blighted. So everything that had happened at Atlantic Yards was wrong. And what you're seeing now is, in fact, you built an arena, which is all they cared about. You've got a little bit of housing. You still haven't started the lion's share of the housing. The public has spent a lot of money on Atlantic Yards and they're getting no benefit from it. And so the real problem is, what are those promises being made and who is going to deliver on those promises? And that's what I will do, leading community, working with community, with rolling up my sleeves with community to ensure that what community wants and needs is provided in these proposed projects, so that the developers know they have to pay attention to the community. And it's the community's voices that will lead in this conversation. And I will be there to ensure that that happens.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Robert Elstein has his hand up.
All right. Thank you so much, Skye. development, according to mayoral hopeful Eric Adams, is like to New York what oil is to Texas. I think that New York is about ideas and ingenuity and community. I think that I would actually say billionaire developer who's, and all of his close friends who are giving money to candidates like Eric Adams and Robert Cornegy and others who are sitting here and in other races all around the city will absolutely never stand up to the billionaire, no matter what they say in a forum like this. Andrew Yang wants to build a casino on one of our crown jewels, Governor's Island. There's no respect for nature. There's no respect for what the people want. It's all about the business interest. We need to reform the community boards. I agree with Khari. We need to absolutely give the community board a vote on these proposals, but the community board needs to be not 100% appointed by the borough president. As Trisha said, it's 50%. It's actually 100% appointed by the borough president. It should be 100% democratic and we need to elect the community board members. We need to make it so that the community board committees have limits to the amount of time people can serve on those committees. We need to compensate the community board members, and we need to think of the community boards as more like a think tank for ideas to be generated. The job of the mayor is an impossible task. There isn't a single candidate running right now that could actually do a good job. Some of them might be able to do an adequate job. A big part of that is mayoral control of the schools. Let's take some of the mayor's authority and give it to the community boards.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know we only have 4 minutes left. I want to give Trisha and Pearlene a chance to weigh in, and then maybe we can have a final quick lightning round question. So Trisha.
Thank you. Robert, the borough president does appoint 50%. The other 50% comes from the city council. They're the ones who bring them on.
No, that's not true. That's the tradition, Trisha. That's one of the lies that the establishment wants the people to believe. The borough president appoints 100%.
The recommendation comes from the city council person, the other one, because I've sat on for a decade, and that's how I came on. I've been on with city council, and I've also been appointed by the borough president.
So let's go into the question about a developer.
When we spoke about development, whether it's a private development or a public development, I think it all needs to go through the same process. I'm a community and housing educator and strategist. It is important that the community is educated on what is coming, right? When we look at Industry City, you have federal MDC that is housing people who are incarcerated, and that building is at its worst. So I don't understand how that whole area was up to be revitalized and no one looked at a building that has humans in it and is in its worst condition. But I also want to point out, and I want to invite Councilman Cornegy and Councilman Reynoso to a press conference we're going to have regarding a current ULOP at 1427 Ralph Avenue that's up for review right now. The community board voted in favor of this pest control that's supposed to house the pesticides and create the pesticides for the whole of New York City. The borough president voted down. Okay, the education, this is not wanted. It's 2 blocks from my house. So, it would be interesting to know what research you've already found on it, because you're going to have to vote on it coming up after the city planning, but also invite you to that press conference because the community wants to know how you're going to vote on this. A pest control 2 blocks from my house. So, yeah, it has to go through the community. The community has to be educated. They know nothing about it. They don't know the pesticides. They didn't even know it was coming. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
What's the address again, Trisha?
1427 Ralph Avenue.
Okay.
It's current under ULOP review.
Pearlene, did you want to weigh in on this before we quickly do a lightning question?
Yes, I just wanted to say something real quick. I won't take a lot of your time. I just want to mention that community boards in a way does have a vote. We're just not listened to. I think we need to have our votes be binding so that when we can make the decision, they don't come in, the developers thinking that this is just a formality, but we know we're going to be able to move on anyway. So, because a couple of times they've been presenting to us, and that's the attitude that they give. Like, I'm just here because it's the step that we have to take next, but I know we're going to do this, and this is within the law that we can do, we can do this particular R6 or whatever. I think we need to have more binding votes in the community boards. And this way, by the time it goes to the ULURP, they know we're not playing with them. If they're going to say they're going to do X, Y, Z, they need to do X, Y, Z and make sure that the community has their voice heard and they're listened to. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And look, we only have 1 minute left. There's a lot of issues. I find it confusing when we talk about a lot of the issues, as I'm sure voters do too. So just as a final concluding thought, we opened up with a catchphrase. Let's conclude with a final phrase or thought, or your superpower, maybe your final superpower that you want voters to know that differentiates you from the competitors on the screen. And we'll conclude that way. And we'll begin with Robert Cornegy.
My superpower is delivery. I've delivered services. We've built community centers, naturally occurring retirement communities. My superpower is taking your concerns and your needs and turning it into solid policy and legislation and using the capital dollars to meet your needs. That's my superpower. And I look forward to being your next borough president. Thank you.
Thank you. Khari Edwards.
That selflessness is the best part of being selfish, and that I probably have one of the biggest hearts that I know of, and I give of myself even to a fault. So I really just feel that the compassion that I have for our people is important.
Thank you. Robert Elstein.
You know, none of us have superpowers, but we do have the ability to inspire others. So that's my power, is I can inspire others and bring us all together and realize that we can do so much more when we're sharing ideas. And I do think I have something like an unusual power, which is empathy, which I think is very unusual in politics. And I'm very empathetic about a proposal that one of our opponents who's not here tonight, Matthew Eugene, wants to bulldoze the sacred African burial grounds of Flatbush. And that just shows that you need heart if you're a politician.
Thank you. Pearlene Fields.
I think I'm good at listening. You know, it's best that you have your mouth shut most of the time so you can hear what's going on. In order to make informed decisions, you have to let people know that their voices are being heard and that their voices matter. So I'm pretty good at listening to what people have to say. So this way I can try and help them the best way that I can. Thank you.
Trisha Ocona.
I just want to say that I hear you, I see you, I am you, Brooklyn. I am you. The same issues that you go through, I go through. And that's the reason why I'm running for Brooklyn Borough President, because I want to help the same issues.
Thank you. Antonio Reynoso.
My superpower is giving Steve Witt a hard time with all my policy. No, it's actually, I want to say, is love. I just got love for everybody. Everyone that's on this stage deeply cares about Brooklyn in their own ways, and they want to figure out a way to help. And I just want to say I got love for all of you, and that's my power to the seniors out in AARP. Love is at the foundation of everything I do, and I want to make sure, like a Care Bear, that I could really push that out.
Right.
Did you say a Care Bear?
A Care Bear with the heart on his stomach.
I know what the Care Bear is. Thank you, brother.
I don't know if, it was in your time. You're right.
Wow, my God.
And Joanne Simon, your superpower.
Wow, my superpower is being a woman who has led and listened and loved. So I would like to just say that, you know, we have to aspire to inspire before we expire. And that is what I think it's all about.
Thank you so much. Thank you, candidates. It was fast and furious. I wanted it to be more fun, but it was a little serious. Thank you so much for taking the time to all these Brooklyn Borough President candidates. Thank you, AARP, our sponsor, and thank you to our partners at the Brooklyn Public Library who are working with us to promote voter education and engagement for the 2021 local elections. On behalf of PoliticsNY and Schneps Media, we are the only media outlet providing a platform for every single candidate to have their voices heard and faces seen. So thank you so much, everyone. Good luck. Tune into our debates. This one's recorded. It'll be on our website, politicsny.com/debates. And see you next time.
Thank you, Skye. Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Well, I had a lot of fun. I don't know about the rest of you, but this was great. Thank you, Skye.
Bye.
Robert, that means you're a masochist.
No.
Bye.